Uh-huh. I know, right? Hold this for a second. Something's not right. Can you check and see if you can find the Facebook Live? Yeah. For some reason, like, before I cancel it, let me just see if you can find it. No, that's the old one. That's not today. Look at my hair.
Usually the top one on here. It's not coming up.
All right, so let's start that over. You can't find it? Hold on, I just restarted it. Can you try again? I just restarted it. Yeah.
It's up.
Okay. Okay. There we go. So I'm web at. Yeah, that was weird. I don't know why it was private before. Ausunong Sinanitra. On Kemmunion, everyone.
Kemmunion.
Dua for being patient. I'm so glad, especially y'all on Facebook. We obviously had little technical glitches or something this morning. And so we had to restart the live, but now it seems we are cooking with gas. Dua Neta for joining us for our regularly scheduled communion this morning. So as always, we're going to get started with our Sunday prayer, and then we will dive into the roll call. Y'all all ahead of us. Like I see all the roll call comments um, already on YouTube and Facebook. But we'll go back over that and we'll do the roll call, and then we'll get into our message for the day. So please, everyone, join me by saying "Ama tu impanatir." Sauek tu impanatir. Auduauma Keti Paharu. The translation is give yourself to Netta daily, keep yourself for Netta daily, and do it tomorrow as you do it today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Nataru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives. For shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akaru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality, and in the moments of crises and the dark nights of the soul when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is and so shall it be. Everyone say, Amen Ma'at.
Amen Ma'at.
Ma'akaru.
Ma'akiru.
All right, y'all, so let's go into this roll call. Let me see what's going on here. Let me see if I can get, here we go. Got the, trying to get the YouTube chat to come on YouTube chat. It's not letting me go back to the beginning. I know I saw Columbia, Maryland on YouTube. I see Lincoln, Nebraska. I see Philadelphia in the house. Okay. On Facebook, I see Hamden, Connecticut's in the building. Sun City, Arizona's in the building. I saw Newark, New Jersey. Brick City's in the building. Who else did I see? Hyattsville, Maryland. Dallas, Texas in the building. That's it so far. I think we're missing some though. Some of y'all told me where y'all were from or chimed in on the roll call earlier. And YouTube's not letting me go back to see. Newcastle, Delaware, Spartanburg, South Carolina, Dallas, Texas, Brooklyn, New York. Dua, Ty Cobbin, you gotta get that album, A New Ambiance. Nasifidi's album, A New Ambiance. Boogie Down Bronx is in the building. Fort Lauderdale's in the building. Trinidad and Tobago, Dua Netter, Lower East Side, NYC, Spartanburg, South Carolina. Yes, yes. Yes, that A New Ambiance album, which is available right now on iTunes, is available on Spotify, it's available on Amazon Music. So please add it to your music library. Yeah, we do still have physical CDs that we're selling as well on the templeofanew.org website. So if you are interested in getting a CD to bump in your car, in your truck, etc., please head to our website to order a CD today. Plainfield, New Jersey's in the building. Richmond, Virginia's in the building. Yes, Ange Maarakia. Nice, nice. Duaneta, Duaneta. So glad to see you all joining us from far and wide. Yes, and grateful that you all are continuing to enjoy and appreciate a new ambiance. Nasa is continuing to work on the next project, a new Radiance, which will be out real soon. We're going to keep y'all posted on that. But for now, please continue to enjoy a new ambiance, the metaphysical music in your meditations, in your yoga work, in your spiritual devotional spaces, ritual spaces. We've got Mercury in retrograde coming up. We've got a full moon coming up. It will be an excellent time for a ritual, prayer, and just mindfulness practices. And the new ambiance is really beautiful music to assist with supporting that. So, again, you can get a digital download in your music library, or you can purchase the physical CD from our website. So, that's all I have to share. I'll turn it over to you.
What else is there to say? Communion's over by the sea. All right. Okay. So we're going to continue with the subject that we had the past 3 communions. So pretty much the past month and a half, almost 2 months, we've been dealing with this idea or this concept of a spiritual disease called acedia. That's ACEDIA. Acedia is translates as laziness, apathy. What we're talking about metaphorically, so we're talking about a disease called spiritual laziness, spiritual apathy, spiritual fatigue. What are people spiritually tired from? And lastly, the last definition is spiritual boredom. And this disease called acedia or spiritual boredom is indirectly undermining people's forward progress in their spiritual path, because it's almost like blasphemous to say, oh, I'm bored with this spiritual thing. So what happens is people just become complacent at their level, and they fail to go in and peel back deeper layers of what it is that they are purported to know. So I also spoke about in the last 3 communions on how it's largely acedia or spiritual boredom is largely a personal thing, and it has nothing to do with people outside of you. It's your own personal business. I think leaders as well as teachers, anyone in a leadership position or a teaching position, realize that teachers and leaders are under more pressure than they've ever been in history, because now it's almost like we're required, when you get in front of people, it's like you're required to be half an entertainer, or at least as interesting as TV. With the advent of social media and reality TV, they want you to at least be as half as entertaining as TV. And in history, coming out the shot, and in history, when you come to a crafts person to learn the craft or learn under them or sit at their feet, they never had to worry about how are they going to keep you entertained, because that's your personal business. Nowadays, people want their leaders and their teachers to be bold. We want them to be exciting. We want them to be controversial. And some people don't even mind a healthy sprinkling of scandal around their teachers or their leadership's name. Why? Because goodness is boring. Righteousness is boring. Doing the right thing is boring. Consistency is boring. When things are consistent and going good, some people consider that boring. You could be sitting up in the house with a full refrigerator of food, watching TV with good company, and you'll still have the nerve to say, I'm bored, let's do something. Mm-hmm. So that's epidemic in this community. So what happens is, when we get to this point, we consciously or unconsciously invoke drama, because this is natural in the human psyche. That's why what sparked this whole conversation is when the other tiers, the scholastic tiers of the community, attacked us as the spiritual tier of the community. Why? Because I said they were bored talking about the stuff that they were talking about amongst each other. So every now and then they just take shots at us over here. Even 2 years ago when they attacked our elder Baba Hiru, it was because they were bored over there. So when you get bored, you kind of create drama, because there's nothing as engaging as trying to solve a problem or being part of the resolution of a problem. So if someone thinks us as the spiritual tier of the community is a problem, they get engaged in that BS, trying to figure out what it is that makes us tick or whatever, to get us to expose ourselves or what have you. So in my opinion, we've been spoiled with learning over the past 40 years. Been spoiled with learning. Our current education, or the current education of the planet, is most people, humanity is as smart as it's ever been in the history of the planet in general. Since now up until current times, the population, the masses have been largely illiterate. Education has been pretty much exclusive to a small class of people, and everybody else will be just crass people, and they will be making their contribution to society, but it wasn't necessary for you to be smart in that sense, or book read in that sense. I hope it's coming across. Not that people was dumb, but people had their skill set that was important in the whole scheme of things, so everybody didn't have to be well read in that sense. So now we have Google. And so you have college, you have school, but now you have Google, you have YouTube, you have Facebook. You can learn every day, all day, what you want at your own leisure.
That's right.
And you're allowed to have this illusion that this information that you're learning is exclusive. And someone else can have a whole different interest, so everyone's in their own bag online. So this creates great pressure to teachers and leaders, because now they're requiring you to be engaging. They're requiring you to have bars. You got to have these sound bites, because now with online, you could go back in history. You could learn about things from 50 years ago, back when the people 50 years ago didn't even know about it, because they didn't have social media. Everyone's knowledge was primarily local. So imagine that 40, 50 years ago, if you was from Jersey, all you would know about was really what was going on in Jersey. Even your news was just local. Now we know everyone's business. So we've been saturated with information, and we have a voracious appetite for information. So over the course of the past 40 years, people have just been eating up information. We're spoiled. All the teachers been given hours and hours worth of lectures. Y'all remember the lectures said about 7 years ago, when people used to go see all the luminaries speak for 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours at a time. It's interesting, the conscious community talk about the church and having you up in church all day on a Sunday, and I find it interesting. All the conscious events pretty much was happening on Sunday, so they was doing the same thing, having people all up in the lecture halls all day Sunday. Then they have the dinner and all of that stuff after. It's the same thing. It all translated over. So you were eating up the information, and lights were going off in your head. You're like, oh wow, that's more info. I want to go learn with Dr. Ben. I want to learn under Dr. Sebi. And now you have a new plethora of teachers in the community, and lights are going off. But we've come to a point that you have to realize that, yeah, your lights are going off, your light is being fed, but there will be a time, and that time is now, where you have to consider that maybe it's time for you to become a light unto others. It can't just be about you and your information. So now we're at this point where it's like self versus others. How much information do you need for yourself? How much information do you need to keep you curious? And how much information or should you give towards other people learning? And this is a big turn for religion. This is a big turn, or a stepping stone for spirituality, or organized spirituality. This is where the church gets its bad reputation, when church became a corporation. So it's one thing when you have teachings amongst your tribe, then that those teachings become an institution. And then the institution becomes about, watch this, the business of enlightenment. And this is where everyone criticizes the church, because they're in the business of enlightenment. It doesn't matter what you think about the church, or whether you think they're teaching the truth or not. They think they're in the business of enlightenment. The Muslims think they're in the business of enlightenment. So that's part of your evolutionary process. So when your teachings evolve to an institution, the institution revolves around the business of enlightenment. And this is where all the criticism comes. Oh, they're making money, you shouldn't be charging, or who says what you say is right, or who says what gives you the right to teach the people? While all the while, whether it's the church, the mosque, or what it is that we do, there's always teachings for the initiates inside. So you're getting your tools for enlightenment, while you're setting up to teach others. So the tools for enlightenment gives you your personal enlightenment, gives you your personal power, so you then could contribute to the institution that is set up towards the enlightenment of others. So we're constantly looking for this balance of What am I getting out of it, and what can I do for others, or how can I help others? It's even said in the book of law, or the law book, I think Black Law's book, it says spirituality is the properties belonging to the church. And I know that contradicts most people's definition of spirituality. Remember, that's the law's definition of spirituality, not Webster's dictionary. It's interesting how words can have different meanings in different circles. So what do they mean by spirituality is the properties of the church? Remember, if you're in the business of enlightenment and everything that you do is for the people then have to invest in the institution. Part of investing in the institution is getting properties, getting the building and the properties. Then there's overhead, then there's taxes, then there's political connections to get strong and powerful people to invest in the church. And anytime you get people investing their money, then those people like to have some say-so and things. So now it becomes not just spiritual in your personal connection to the source. So spirituality becomes about the business of how to maintain this thing so-called for the people. A lot of people don't think it's for the people, but here you is, you watching the church buy up properties, get townhouses, and it's for their congregation and the people. So it's a conscience. So you might not like their teachings, you might not like the color of the theology, but in their right, they feel like they're doing it for the people, even if you think they're misleading them. So they have a formula that in order to be successful, that's what it is that you have to do. You have to establish an institution and then becoming part of the business of enlightenment. So now it comes down to, is your philosophy and your theology is correct or not? So I'm saying it's time to, I know it sounds weird for people in the conscious community, slow down with all the thinking that you need to know, all of this new stuff. We're coming to a point, it's time for us to now begin to do what it is that we know. Are you really doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing without provocation, without inspiration from the outside? Are you doing what it is that you know you're supposed to be doing? Are you doing what it is that you know you have to do? Are you doing what you have to do? And then that doing has to come to a place of being. Are you being comedic? Are you actually being spiritual? Or are you just going to be perpetually just learning? The learning is going to be, that's indefinite, but the learning doesn't always have to be from books. The learning is about going inside. Essentially, at some point you got to put the books down and start contemplating, what does this mean? What does this mean for me? How do I apply this? And when you get involved in this applying this, then it becomes being. And it's not so much things that you think about, it's just who you are naturally. And I know that there's this discrepancy. A lot of people like to believe or like to project to other people that they're being spiritual when they're really just studying it. And they're just doing rituals. But that does not necessarily mean they qualify for you to actually be spiritual. Why am I saying this? We're living in very interesting times. Things are very fast. All of our beliefs in self, our belief in our ancestors, our belief in our connection to the Creator is now being challenged. Let me rephrase that. Watch how I rephrase it. It is your belief in self, in Netter, in your ancestors that's being challenged. And you see the difference in what I said? So that means there's a lot of pressure on each person individually. I think y'all heard of a concept called white fragility. White fragility is white folks being scared and intimidated of black folks, and they do things to sabotage our upward mobility because they're comfortable with their foot on our neck, and any clues that we're getting that foot off their neck, they start getting uncomfortable and start doing things like calling us racist and stuff because they were comfortable with us being in a disempowered position. So what am I saying? I'm saying there's a such thing called spiritual fragility. Spiritual fragility is when you have all of these people walking around scared to be challenged by life because they don't know if their ancestors are going to come through. They don't know if their God is going to come through. They don't know if they can come through. Life is actually exposing your inauthentic connection to these things that you claim you are. I look at people online and they replaced God with ancestors, like they done something. I don't believe in no spook God, but you replaced it with some other beings that you can't see. So I'm saying all of that is being challenged. You are being challenged to see if you really believe all of that stuff. And it's becoming so intense. I got to talk about it because it's becoming so intense to the point where if you thought you believed in it and didn't know you weren't being authentic in it, the challenge and the exposure of your weakness in it is enough to throw people into spiritual crises. So there's a thin line between spiritual crises and mental illness. It's really the same thing. Mm-hmm. The difference between spiritual crises and mental illness is a matter of closure and perspective. Those in spiritual crises who have leadership and who have things like readings and oracles to get some perspective on what it is that you're going through, those people technically get closure. But those that are deemed mentally ill, they didn't get closure. So they're just stuck in perpetual spiritual crises. Why? Because they feel betrayed that they got to go through pain, that they got to go through illness, and they're embarrassed because in their understanding, God was somehow supposed to protect them from these things. I wasn't supposed to get sick. You have certain people that's upset at God or the Creator because their grandmother died. Isn't that an immature spiritual perspective? Everybody's supposed to believe in life after death, pouring libations, ancestors, family in heaven, but yet you're mad at God for a natural process. Okay, so your grandmother's gone, so that's something to be angry at your spirituality. That's how certain people are. They're bringing that level of immaturity into their spirituality to think that wasn't supposed to happen, and I challenge it. I challenge it because I'm saying that you haven't properly read the text of any of the traditions, not just the African traditions. I'm talking about the Bible, the Quran, and the Torah also. Nobody said that being spiritual was going to protect you from life. Let us look at the story of Job. What about Jesus? And what about Heru? Job was so tight and close to the Creator that the Creator actually made a wager with the devil that he could make Job curse the Creator. So Job, here he is, this spiritual person, was allowed to be touched by the devil. The devil made his whole body filled with boils, full of boils, that he couldn't sit down in regular chairs. That he had to sit in a pile of ash because it was that painful. Because the devil or the demon said it, it gets to the point where if I get these people uncomfortable enough, they'll turn on God. Isn't this what's happening with people? They don't get the money that they thought, they don't get the love life or the romantic love that they want, and they're looking for receipts. Well, I put this much money in it. How come I didn't get this out of it? So it's all a fraud. So this thing has been going on since the beginning of time, starting with whether you believe they're real characters or not. These are stories about our character. Mm-hmm. What about Jesus? Jesus fasted 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. And who showed up? It wasn't the beings of light. It wasn't the angelic beings. It was the devil. The devil showed up. How many people are that thorough on their path that they could be calm if you wake up? If you're in the middle of the night doing your prayer and you wake up and a demonic being is there in your living room, would you think your spirituality is working or not working? Or would you take that as a sign that you're highly spiritual, that the polar opposite of you shows up? You're like, what's good? Because you become an anomaly. A principled man and a principled woman is an anomaly in the spiritual realm when you got all these type of forces that's kind of counting on your downfall. So when you get a real one, they be like, oh, I got to show up. I got to see who this person is. What's up? What's good? So Jesus had to be tested. Job has to be tested. And they were already highly spiritual. In Christianity, it doesn't get any higher than Jesus. Yet he had to deal with the devil in person. What about the Kemetic teachings? What about Heru? We know Heru is the son of who?
Set and Asar.
Set and Asar. His uncle was who?
Satesh.
These are all gods. These are all divine beings. And Asar got killed by his brother Satesh. So as a spiritual being, as a spiritual being reading this story, you'd be like, well, if Asar was the king, then he had a kingdom. Therefore, he had a council. Therefore, he had guards. Like, where was Jehudi at? Why didn't Jehudi set Satesh straight? Where was Montu, the warrior god? Where was Sekhmet? Where was the justice at in this story? Y'all see where I'm going with it? Adversity is part of the mix. Mm-hmm. The higher the spiritual are, the more challenge you're gonna get. So Job. Jesus, check it out. So Jesus, his last words on the cross was, my Father, why have you forsaken me? He had a moment of weakness. Job never said those words, so the Christians got to figure out who was greater, Job or Jesus, because Job never said nothing about God. For if I can remember the story, maybe I'm wrong. That's just interesting. But the point is, there could be no hero without the demon. You need the adversity to bring these things up out of you. So your spirituality can't protect you from everything. For the most part, it does protect you. Just like you have the immune system, and every now and then, periodically, you might take ill. But for the most part, 99% of your time as a physical being on this planet, you're not sick. So you might get, every year, you might get a cold for 2 years in a row. You'd be like, I'm always getting sick. You're like, that's not always getting sick. For the most part, you're well. Right. Same thing with the spirituality. So there might be times when you get exposed to some spiritual affliction. You might get exposed to disease. But what is it about? It's about the adversity. It's about you knowing and you standing on your truth or what you know to be true. You have to look at it like this. How are you going to tell a woman who's lost her child that she's going to be all right if you've never been through nothing? Mm-hmm. How are you going to tell the person in the hospital with cancer that I'm going to pray for you and we're going to do a prayer circle and we're going to lift your vibrations and vibrate you out of the illness if you never had no illness that you had to vibrate out of? I learned this lesson 2 years ago when I had my health crisis and I was in the hospital, paralyzed, waist down, and all I could do was move my arms. That gave me the opportunity to demonstrate if I really believe what I've been teaching other people all this time. So I don't dislike the experience. I'm just like, okay, it was all good. I needed my own validation for myself. So here I am in this bed and I'm trying to move and it's feeling like my body's in quicksand because I can't really feel my body. And it made me really appreciate the body. Because when you don't have the body-mind connection, your body becomes literally like a husk. And what in the text said, it becomes like feathers. So you be like, damn, my body's not, like it's this heavy? You know, like I'm trying to move and it's not reacting. Like, so the body is a fine specimen with a neural network and it's all interconnected. And you begin to appreciate how much energy and coordination it takes for your body just to get up and walk to the door. You know, most people don't know that their lower back is connected to the muscles in the calf muscles and think it's all interconnected. So if you're up and you're walking about well, then I behoove you. It's your responsibility to master your body. That's what yoga's about. You must master the range of your body because it's not granted. By me not being able to move my legs and move my body the way I wanted to, it gave me a look into the world of the ancestors and the Creator. The frustration that I experienced by not being able to move on my own terms was very frustrating. So imagine the Creator that you pray to and your ancestors that you may pray to, how they want to move in and through you, but you're uncooperative. Imagine the frustration. You asking for help, but you're not cooperating with the help that's trying to come through. So that gave me a new perspective and a new respect for my ancestors and the Creator through that. But it gave me an opportunity to demonstrate my truth. Like what we say, I live in truth. So like I said, remember I'm up here having conversations battling with the doctors on philosophy about the mind-body connection. They telling me all the stuff that the machines are saying, and I'm like, nah, that got nothing to do with mind-body connection. And now I'm walking because I stuck with what I knew to be true. If I followed their thing, I don't know if I'll be as complete or whole as I am now. But once again, back to the times that we're in is our beliefs are being challenged. The planet itself is now speeding up. It's speeding up faster than it was 50 years ago. And it's equivalent to like how the scientists break it down when you see somebody doing ice skating and they're doing the spin and they got their arms out, and when they bring their arms in, they go faster. So the planet speeding up has something to do with the climate change. So what happens, the mass of the planet is changing because the ice glaciers are melting, so it's creating more liquid. So as that liquid comes closer to the axis on which the Earth is spinning, it's speeding up. So in that, time is slowing down on the surface of the Earth, so we're losing like a second or so. So technically, this year will be a short year. We're losing like a second out of every day, out of the whole year. So we're talking about spirituality. So as above, so below. How does that affect our psyche? So if energetically the planet is speeding up and time is slowing down on the surface, how does that manifest in our body? That manifests as agitation, anxiety. Put a 1 in the chat if you've been experiencing undescribable agitation and anxiety, that you can't connect to anything, that you can't connect it to anything. So, agitation and anxiety, that's causing you to have these questions like, why aren't I enlightened yet? Why aren't I healed yet? Why aren't I, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Why aren't I successful yet? Why aren't I rich yet? Everyone's going through everyone's thinking in their hustle, in their bag, and it seems like it's not coming fast enough, and you should be farther along than what you are. So it gives this illusion. Remember, the planet is speeding up, but time is slowing down. So it's giving this illusion that you're not doing enough. So people start trying to do more. So be like, okay, this temple thing, this spirituality thing is cool, but I'm going to join this other organization because I need to do more. And then you be like, oh, I'm going to start this family because I need to do more. Oh, I'm not just going to work for the man. I'm going to start my own business. So here we have, you participated in all these things that somebody said is supposed to be fulfilling to you, but for some reason it's not fulfilling to you. So you indulge yourself in busyness. But I say that business a lot of times is unproductive busyness. You'd be like, okay, my spirituality is not completely fulfilling. I started my family, that's not completely fulfilling. I'm doing the entrepreneurial thing, that's not completely fulfilling. So what happens is now you have added all of these things to your plate and none of these things are fulfilling. So now you start disengaging. You're not totally present for any of it. So when you leave your house, all your lifestyle, your culture is just one big to-do list. You can't wait. So you're tired when you leave your house. You can't wait to get home, but you even have a to-do list for when you get back home. So now you leave home, you go to the job, your mind, you're mentally not fully there or engaged because you got stuff to do outside after the job. You come to temple, you're not fully engaged because now you got to go to your mother's house after temple. You go with your mother, you're not fully engaged because now you got to go home and do laundry. And so when you get home, you can't even relax because you got to do laundry and these things to do, prepare for work. So now that creates that unfulfillment, creates acedia. We finally get to it. It creates that boredom. You ain't impressed with none of it. You ain't impressed with the spirituality. You ain't impressed with your new entrepreneurial thing going on, and none of it brought the type of satisfaction that you think. Remember I said, acedia, spiritual boredom, is your personal thing. It got nothing to do with the world. It's largely a personal thing. Nobody's here to entertain you. How dare you imply that your creator somehow make life more entertaining for you? How dare that you imply your ancestors that you're born? You keep playing with you, they're gonna shake some stuff up for you and you won't be bored. Remember, drama is a way to shaking some stuff up. There was a saying that said, I forgot where it came from. It said, we embrace the chaos because we love to create harmony. We embrace the chaos because we love to create harmony. So that means you could be chilling, we could be chilling, everything is good, and people will just start acting up for no reason at all because that keeps things interesting. That's what us as human beings do. Remember, some people, they're the most motivated when they think somebody's hating on them. When they think somebody's hating on them and try to hold them down, that's when they're operating at their best, but they won't just do that on GP. You need an enemy to be your best. I'm not saying you need an enemy to be the best, but there are people out there that they can't, for whatever reason, be motivated on their own. So we have this spiritual boredom that's always plaguing us, that we're trying to always blame the other people outside of themselves. So we go back to the 60s with the Black Power movement. That was exciting. You had the Panthers and all of this. They were walking around with guns, protecting their community, children's programs and all types of stuff. That was exciting. Then, the government came down on that. And then in the 80s, there was a different vibe. Mm-hmm. I remember y'all remember the movie I'm gonna get you, sucker.
Yeah.
It was a spoof to the whole thing that was going on in the 60s and 70s and stuff like that. And one scene, I don't remember it clearly. It was an activist. He was an old school activist. He's still looking like he was caught up in the old Black Panther thing. He was dressed like that. He was dressed like a revolutionary. And they said, "Say, man, what happened to all y'all old cats talking all that Black Power stuff?" And he said, "Niggas got jobs." The niggas got jobs. So the 80s was a whole different vibe. Then the 90s came in with the 80s, the late 80s. We had Dr. Ben and all the scholars teaching us things about Africa. We was wearing the medallions, red, black, and green and stuff. That was exciting. In the 90s, all of a sudden, that was considered old and corny. Let you wear a medallion now, people kind of be looking at you like, "Why are you wearing that?" Mm-hmm. Wear the Tams that the Black Panther was having back in the day, and people like, "Why are you wearing that?" So it went from history to metaphysics. The metaphysics was largely the underground community coming from the streets, the self-proclaimed scholars, and that was very much connected into hip-hop and street culture. Then people started getting into initiation into the Yoruba, Ifa, Santiri, and the Kemetic thing. And now here we are in the 2000s, or 2020, and now everybody wants to be a scientist. Y'all see the pattern that I'm setting up, that people get bored for no reason at all. They just start wanting something else, wanting something more. So it's like, did you really understand the metaphysics? Did you really get the history? Or did you really indulge in the spirituality to give you the power that the metaphysicians were just talking about? So I'm going back to boredom is largely personal. That's your problem. So you have to learn how to keep wonder alive. It was wonder that creates culture. It was wonder that gets you going deeper within. There was one day when a lot of you Kemetic initiates wondered about what it would be like to be initiated. Then you went through it. Then you wonder what it was going to feel like when you got your spiritual name. Then you got it. Then you wonder what it would be like to attain titles. And then you got it. Some even wondered what it would be like to learn Metal Netta. That was a mystery back in the 80s. Oh, I wonder what all that says on the walls. And now people can read it. But I see it in the session of Sue in the chat. Session of Sue, is your class packed with all these people that wondered about reading the Metal Netta? So it's there, but them classes are not packed. Because now all of a sudden people say it's boring. Because you still got to deal with nouns, pronouns, adjective, all that boring stuff that y'all said was European stuff. Find out that it's ours. You got to understand how to speak proper. All of that stuff. You got to learn your ABCs, all that again. So you wondered about it till you was able to get it, and then you had the nerve to say you bored with it. But you didn't say you was bored with it. It just showed out in your behavior. Passive aggressive behavior. So that's why we start creating start creating drama. So let me tell you what you could do when we get to this point where you're spiritually bored. You have to ask yourself a series of questions. Number one, who am I? When you ask who are you, or when you can answer that question, it brings you back to the moment. It's kind of like if you were drowning or if you were unconscious and somebody had to bring you back to conscious, they have to say your name. They have to call your name. So you have to know who you are. Do you know who you are? Are you Moorish? Are you Kemite? Are you a Melanite? What does that mean? And what are the standards and expectations that come with that? Those are questions that you got to answer when you have the audacity to feel like you're bored with things. There is no boredom. There's always layers of understanding. So yes, we can apply novelty to what it is that we're into, but everything doesn't have to be entertaining. Because sometimes you lose your fundamentals by just going too much with entertainment. Number two, what can I learn? Remember, I'm speaking to you all of you on here are spiritualists or aspiring spiritualists into the Kemetic spiritual system. So, of course, I'm always speaking primarily to the Kemetic practitioners. What can you learn? Is it history? Is it Hesi? Hesi is the sacred chanting and things like that. Is it meditation? Is it yoga? Is it Medu Netter? Is it ritual? You can learn all of these things. So what can you learn? and mind you, all of us answer these questions different. I can't answer the questions for you. I'm saying this is what you have to ask yourself when you're feeling, I guess, agitated, anxious for something, but can't quite put your finger on it. But for whatever reason, your current spiritual practice is not fulfilling. You ask yourself these questions. What should be important to me? So once you ask, what can I learn? And what should be important to me? I can't answer that for you. You have to answer that for yourself. What was your primary reasons for coming to the legacy or looking into the Kemetic thing? Was it just the imagery? Some people just loved the imagery and they swore that they was going to be a part of this forever just because they saw someone carrying an arm. That was certain people's sole interest in getting into the system because they saw somebody carrying an arm. And that's no shot or no shade. It was just, we all have different motivations on why we do what it is that we do, or why we embark on the path that we embark on. Next, how should I live my life with myself and with others? Again, how should I live my life with myself and with others? That means, what is your code? What is the code? And do you really live by it? And can your fidelity to that code be improved? Again, how should I live my life with myself and with others? That's why we always talking about the text, the readings of the year. You should never not know where you are in the universal scheme of things. You should never not know what it is that you have to do. And now here's the question, where did it all start? So here you are, part of this movement. You're here to Facebook. Do you know our history of the Temple of Anu? Do y'all know that? Do y'all know the history of the Shrine of Ma'at? Do you know the history of the Shrine of Ptah? Do you know the history of the Kesu, the rituals, the ceremonies that we do? Do you know the history of Kemmunion and who that was inspired by? We went over that before in the past, but do you know these things? So it's about getting you to look at what it is that you do in a different light. Then you have to ask, where is all of this going? Is it to build community? I say it's to build a righteous spiritual community. Some people already be at jumping guns. They be like, oh, we need buildings, we need prophecy. I'm like, no, we need a righteous spiritual community that actually supports each other in live time, consistently.
That's right.
We don't need buildings, empty buildings,
Right.
or fancy buildings with empty philosophy. Then you have to ask, where am I going? Yourself, where are you going? So now, what is this thing? Where is it going? With your participation in it, where are you going? When you see me and Hemet up here, we're the face of the legacy. We're not going anywhere. We don't have any other plans of doing anything else with our lives. Our life is dedicated to this. So you ask yourself, are you just a passerby? Are you just a visitor? Or are you a permanent fixture? For some people, being a permanent fixture is boring, but you could be a permanent fixture and still be remodeled, you know, and that's what you got to do every now and then. You got to remodel and remake yourself, but it's still to improve on the design, not because you're bored. It's because it's just time to improve on the design. So those are the questions that you have to ask, and you have to ask those questions why, so then you could know how to do what needs to be done, how to do and why to do what needs to be done. And we have to find a striking balance between outer accomplishment and inner attainment. Again, the contrast and the balance between outer accomplishment and inner attainment, which I say is the essence of entertainment. What's going on outside and what's going on inside. So when you pay attention to what's going on inside, when you get the inner attainment, that's how you entertain yourself. And that is true entertainment. And that is the cure to acedia.
That's right.
I'll leave it on that since we spoke about 3 communions on it, 4 communions on it. And I guess I can get into it more like as we go along, but I think those sets of questions gave people something to now just reorientate themselves spiritually in contrast to where they're at and where they want to go and where they want to take this, or what level or what layers they could peel back about what it is that they've already been exposed to.
Yeah.
Because I'm just gonna go out on a limb. We have very smart people out there. Some people heard all this information before, but you may not have heard it the way we presented it today. And that's all it is. We're trying to remind you of what it is that you know already, and hopefully today is the day that you actually do it and actually do something with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Joanna, sir. You have spoken and you have spoken well. Well, thank you all again for joining us. I hope you got something out of today's message. And if you did, please consider sending a donation to the Temple of Anu for our work, our energy, and our efforts to bring knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, as well as to build community, for all of you, for our children, and for generations to come. You can send a donation by Cash App, which is $ Temple of Anu. You can also do so on PayPal, which is templeofanu@gmail.com. We appreciate all of the energy that you send us in reciprocity for the energy that you receive from us. Whether you send a donation or not, it is okay. We appreciate your presence and your time with us today, and we look forward to spending time with you again in 2 weeks at our next regularly scheduled communion, which will be on Sunday, May 30th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we will dual stream again on both YouTube and Facebook Live in 2 weeks.
And that's correct, Larry. He said sometimes the remix is better than the original. That's right.
Okay.
Do I not, sir? Yes.
Baba Heru.
And Baba Heru has an event that should be starting in about an hour or so, I think. He is speaking today. Please go to Baba Heru Speaks, to his page, to see the flyer. Actually, I think the flyer is also on our page. The website is, I think, soul-sojourner.com. Check out that information so you all can register and participate in that event. A beautiful opportunity to learn at the feet of our great elder, the father of this legacy, the father of the Shrine of Ptah. We love you, Baba. We support you. Please send energy to and support Baba Heru today.
And that will be Baba's contribution to curing acedia.
Do I answer? Yes.
The Sunday acedia.
Yes.
Bored, go check
Yes.
Baba out.
Can't be bored today. You got too much good stuff going on. So do I answer? All right. So we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Show me what's up.